There are men with ambition who will still die poor, not because they lacked hunger, not because they lacked pain, not because they were born weak. They will die poor because they kept falling into traps that felt intelligent, loyal, safe, or patient. The most dangerous money traps do not look stupid while you are inside them. They look responsible. They look humble. They look patient. They look like loyalty. They look like discipline. And that is why they are dangerous. One of these traps will look like your ambition. One will look like your loyalty. One will look like patience. And one will look like intelligence. But if you do not recognize them, you will spend your strongest years looking busy while remaining financially harmless. Here is the question most ambitious men never ask themselves. Why do some men work hard for years, sacrifice comfort, read books, wake up early, stay disciplined, and still gain no leverage? Why do they improve themselves but remain broke, replaceable, dependent, and easy to ignore? The answer is colder than motivation. Because the world does not reward ambition. It rewards power. Machiavelli was not interested in comforting men. He was interested in stripping away illusion. In The Prince, he wrote that men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. That sentence is not poetry. It is a warning. Men are ruled by appearances before truth ever enters the room, and money obeys the same law. Most men do not stay poor because they have no ambition. They stay poor because their ambition is not organized into power. Ambition without strategy becomes exhaustion. Effort without proof becomes invisibility. Patience without movement becomes fear. If you do not understand these traps, you will lose more than money. You will lose time. You will lose status. You will lose bargaining power. You will lose the ability to walk away. You will lose the respect that comes from being useful, proven, and difficult to replace. And worst of all, you will mistake movement for progress. You will think you are building because you are tired. You will think you are disciplined because you are busy. You will think you are patient because you are waiting. You will think you are loyal because you are afraid to leave. That is how ambitious men remain poor. Not through laziness, through misread reality. Kodak knew the future was coming. Kodak engineer Steve Sasson created an early digital camera in 1975, but the company's leadership feared that digital photography would threaten its profitable film business. The strategic trap was not ignorance. It was attachment to the past. Blockbuster had size, stores, brand recognition, and dominance. At its peak, it had about 9,000 stores globally. Netflix introduced streaming in 2007 and helped change how people consumed entertainment. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy protection in 2010 after competition from Netflix, Redbox, and video on demand intensified. Old dominance died because it mistook size for safety. That is the first lesson. Knowing the future is useless if you are too emotionally loyal to the past. And many ambitious men do exactly this with money. They know they need leverage. They know they need proof. They know they need skill. They know they need to become useful in the market. But they stay loyal to habits, friends, environments, appearances, and fears that keep them financially weak. So now we expose the first trap. Trap 1. Chasing fast money. Fast money attracts impatient men, and impatient men are easy to exploit. The man who desperately needs money quickly becomes vulnerable to anyone selling speed, shortcuts, secrets, or status. This is why the poorest ambitious men are often the easiest to sell fantasies to. They do not lack hunger. They lack control over urgency. So the question is not, why do men chase fast money? The real question is, who profits from men who cannot tolerate slow power? When you chase fast money, you lose command of your judgment. You stop asking, is this real? You start asking, can this rescue me? That is how weak men get trapped. They jump into schemes, trends, fake opportunities, unstable partnerships, and emotional decisions because they want to skip the phase where proof is built slowly. Machiavelli wrote, "He who relies least on fortune is established the strongest." This is not a motivational line. It is a survival principle. A ruler who depends on luck becomes fragile. A man who depends on one lucky financial escape remains poor in structure, even if he briefly touches money. Fast money feels powerful because it promises escape without transformation. That is why it is seductive. It tells the ambitious man that he does not need to build a skill. He does not need to study the market. He does not need to create evidence. He does not need to become valuable. He only needs the right move. But here is the colder question. What kind of man are you becoming while chasing this? Because if your money strategy depends on luck, hype, timing, or another man's promise, you are not building power. You are borrowing hope. And borrowed hope always comes with interest. The trap is this: fast money teaches you to worship outcomes without understanding mechanisms. Machiavelli's concept of virtue is often misunderstood. It does not mean being nice. It means capability, adaptability, strategic energy, and the ability to shape events instead of being shaped by them. Fortuna may give a man an opening. Virtue determines whether he can hold it. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half." He is saying fortune matters, but only fools surrender everything to it. Fast money is the worship of fortune. Real money is the construction of power. The ambitious man must stop asking, "How can I make money quickly?" He must start asking, "What capability can I build that makes money predictable?" A weak man wants rescue. A strategic man builds repeatable advantage. Fast money is not power. Repeatable value is power. But even if a man stops chasing fast money, he can still remain poor if he falls into the second trap. Trap 2. Working hard without building proof. Hard work is one of the most dangerous traps for ambitious men, not because work is bad, but because work can make a man feel noble while keeping him invisible. If your work cannot be seen, measured, packaged, or transferred into leverage, it stays trapped. This is where many men get angry at the world. They say, "I work harder than everyone around me." But the market does not reward effort directly. It rewards visible proof. A man can spend years being useful inside another man's system and still own nothing. No public evidence, no reputation, no portfolio, no measurable proof, no negotiation power, no reason for the market to treat him differently. He becomes tired, but not stronger. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." That sentence is brutal because it means substance alone is not enough. If the world cannot see your value, the world behaves as if it does not exist. Think about the quiet, competent man. He works, he sacrifices, he solves problems, he stays late. He hopes someone notices. But someone else presents better, someone else documents better, someone else speaks in numbers, someone else controls the narrative. And suddenly, the quiet, competent man learns a lesson he should have learned earlier. Reality that is not framed will be framed by someone else. This applies directly to money. If your work produces no visible proof, it cannot become leverage. Proof is what allows a man to negotiate. Proof is what allows a man to charge more. Proof is what allows a man to leave. Proof is what allows strangers to trust him before they know him. Without proof, You are asking the world to believe in your hidden potential. And the world does not pay for hidden potential. Here is the mechanism. Hard work only becomes power when it creates transferable evidence. A portfolio, a case study, a result, a number, a before and after, a skill demonstration, a public record, a reputation. Machiavelli wrote in The Art of War, "In war, discipline can do more than fury." He was speaking about military organization, not personal finance. But the principle transfers cleanly. Intensity without structure loses to disciplined systems. Many ambitious men have fury. Few build disciplined proof. Stop being proud of being tired. Tired is not proof. Busy is not proof. Sacrifice is not proof. A strategic man does not merely work. He makes the work testify. If your work cannot be seen, measured, or used as leverage, it is not yet power. If you are the right man for this channel, stop confusing motion with progress. You already know you are capable, but your real problem is that your capability is not yet structured into proof, income, discipline, and leverage. If you keep working invisibly, waiting to be discovered, and calling exhaustion a virtue, you will remain useful to other men while owning nothing that gives you freedom. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered studies on power, money, reputation, discipline, and the psychology of becoming undeniable, so you can stop leaking force and start building a life that gives you options. This is not for men who want comfort. It is for men who are ready to be tested by reality. The decision is yours. But once a man understands proof, he often makes another mistake. He tries to invest his way to freedom before he has enough income to create force. Trap 3. Investing before increasing income. Investing too early can become a sophisticated form of avoidance. It feels intelligent. It sounds responsible. It lets a man believe he is playing the wealth game. But if his income is weak, his capital is small, and his skill is underdeveloped, investing often becomes emotional theater. The question is this: why do some men obsess over returns before they have built earning power? Because investing feels cleaner than selling, building, producing, and confronting the market. A man with weak income checking investment returns every day is often avoiding the harder question. Why does so little money flow toward him in the first place? Small capital with weak income rarely creates freedom. It may create education. It may create discipline. It may create small compounding. But it will not rescue a man from low earning power. A man making weak income who only thinks about investments is often trying to avoid the harder battlefield. Becoming more valuable. Machiavelli would not call this evil. He would call it a misplacement of force. In The Prince, he wrote, "The main foundations of all states are good laws and good arms." He was speaking about states, not bank accounts. But the principle is clear. Power rests on foundations. A state without arms is exposed. A man without earning power is exposed. Many ambitious men want their small savings to do what their skill has not yet done. They want investments to compensate for low income. They want compound interest to replace market value. They want financial strategy before personal force. But capital obeys scale. If you have little money coming in, your first war is not optimization. Your first war is income. That may mean learning sales, learning a technical skill, building a service, building proof, changing environments, solving more expensive problems, becoming harder to replace. The man who avoids income growth because investing sounds more sophisticated is often hiding from confrontation, because income forces you into the market, and the market is colder than theory. The trap is this: investing before increasing income can make a man feel strategic while he remains economically weak. Machiavelli wrote in The Art of War, "It is much better to tempt fortune where it can favor you than to see your certain ruin by not tempting it." This is not reckless gambling. It means action under intelligent conditions is superior to passive decline. A man with weak income must not worship safety. He must build the capacity to earn. Do not hide behind financial intelligence. The first capital of an unsupported man is not money. It is capability. Capability creates income. Income creates surplus. Surplus creates options. Options create power. Before your money can work for you, you must become someone money can flow toward. But even if a man builds capability, he may stay poor because he remains loyal to an environment designed to keep him small. Trap 4. Staying loyal to low-value environments. Some men stay broke because they are emotionally loyal to people who benefit from their smallness. This is one of the hardest truths for unsupported men to accept. Not everyone around you wants your destruction, but many people want your predictability. They do not need to hate you to limit you. They only need to prefer the version of you they can understand, explain, joke about, interrupt, and control. The question is not, why do ambitious men stay in low-value environments? The real question is, why does familiarity feel like loyalty even when it is killing your future? Because familiarity disguises control as belonging. Low-value environments punish growth. They mock ambition before it has proof. They call discipline obsession. They call risk irresponsibility. They call distance arrogance. They call your hunger unrealistic. And if you are still emotionally dependent on being understood, they can slow you down without ever touching you. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous." This quote is often used lazily, as if Machiavelli simply hated humanity. That is too shallow. He was not saying every person is always evil. He was saying power cannot be built on sentimental assumptions about human reliability. A man trying to rise from a low-value environment faces an invisible war. Not just poverty, not just lack of resources, not just lack of support. He faces emotional gravity. People who knew you powerless often struggle to treat your ambition seriously. They remember your old mistakes. They remember your old weakness. They remember your old dependency. They remember the version of you they could explain. So when you start building a future they cannot control, they pull you back into the old narrative. They may do it with jokes. They may do it with guilt. They may do it with concern. They may do it by calling you changed, cold, distant, arrogant, or obsessed. But listen carefully. Sometimes when people say you have changed, what they really mean is that you are becoming harder to manage. Kodak's trap was not that it lacked knowledge. It had early access to the future. Its deeper trap was that the future threatened the system that already made it powerful. Many men do the same thing socially. They know they need to grow, but growth threatens the identity that keeps them accepted. So they remain loyal to the past and call it humility. The mechanism is this. Environment enforces identity. Machiavelli's politics teaches that power depends on alliances, institutions, and the structure around the ruler. A prince surrounded by corrupt forces cannot pretend virtue alone will save him. In Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli repeatedly returned to the idea that ambition and corruption shape collective life. Men do not automatically remain noble because you need them to. Institutions, incentives, and necessity shape behavior. The modern application is simple. If your environment rewards weakness, mocks seriousness, and punishes discipline, your ambition will always be under social attack. Stop confusing loyalty with self-betrayal. A man does not owe permanent access to environments that keep him financially, mentally, and strategically weak. The unsupported man must learn a cruel truth. Some rooms cannot crown you because they are built to contain you. Do not stay loyal to a place that profits from your lower position. But even if a man leaves the wrong environment, he can still destroy his capital by trying to look powerful before he becomes useful. Trap 5. Looking rich before becoming useful. Looking rich before becoming useful is one of the fastest ways ambitious men remain poor. Status consumption kills capital before it becomes power. And the cruel part is this: the poorer a man feels internally, the more tempted he becomes to purchase external proof. It is not, why do men buy expensive things? The real question is, why do men buy symbols of power before they have power? Because appearance is easier to purchase than capability. When a man spends to look successful before he has built real leverage, he weakens his future position. He loses savings. He loses flexibility. He loses risk capacity. He loses the ability to survive long enough for skill to mature. And worse, he becomes addicted to being perceived as higher than he is. Machiavelli understood appearance deeply. In The Prince, he wrote, "The common people are always taken by appearances and by the outcome of the thing." This does not mean appearance is useless. It means appearance is powerful. But a strategic man uses appearance to strengthen power. A weak man uses appearance to conceal the absence of it. A young, ambitious man gets his first money. Instead of turning it into skill, tools, savings, distribution, proof, or business capacity, he turns it into image. He buys the signal before he owns the substance. He wants the watch, the car, the clothes, the dinners, the lifestyle, the photos. He wants to be treated like a man who has arrived because he is tired of feeling invisible. But the market does not care how tired he is. The market asks a colder set of questions. What can you do? What problem can you solve? What proof do you have? Who trusts you? What result follows your name? If the answer is weak, then the image is not power. It is camouflage. And camouflage becomes expensive when it fools the man wearing it. The trap is this: status without utility becomes financial bleeding. Machiavelli would not tell a ruler to ignore appearance. He would tell him to control it. But he would never confuse appearance with actual force. In The Prince, he wrote, "A prince ought to have no other aim or thought but war, its rules and discipline." This is not a call for modern men to seek conflict. Machiavelli is speaking about rulers and military readiness. But strategically, he is saying power requires preparation beneath appearance. A ruler who looks grand but lacks force is fragile. A man who looks successful but lacks skill, savings, income, proof, and discipline is financially naked. The ambitious man must stop purchasing respect and start becoming costly to ignore. Buy tools before toys, buy skills before symbols, buy freedom before applause. Looking rich is easy. Becoming useful is harder. Only one creates power. Do not buy the costume of power before you build the machinery of power. But becoming useful has one unavoidable requirement most men avoid. You must learn to sell. Trap 6. Avoiding sales. A man who cannot sell depends on men who can. This is one of the most important money laws ambitious men resist. They want to be talented. They want to be respected. They want to be discovered. They want their work to speak for itself. But work does not speak. Men speak for it. Markets interpret it. Positioning frames it. Proof sells it. The question is this: why do ambitious men avoid sales? Because sales exposes them to rejection, and rejection reveals whether their value is real, clear, and desired. Avoiding sales keeps a man dependent. Dependent on employers. Dependent on managers. Dependent on platforms. Dependent on someone else's audience. dependent on someone else's ability to translate his value into money. If you cannot sell, you may still be useful. But you are not sovereign. Machiavelli understood persuasion, perception, and control of narrative. In The Prince, he wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand." Meaning, people judge what they see faster than what they verify. This is not moral advice. It is observational realism. Sales is the art of making value visible before the buyer has fully experienced it. The talented man often resents sales. He thinks selling is beneath him. He says, "I just want to do good work. I do not want to persuade. I do not want to promote myself. I do not want to sound arrogant. I hate marketing." But beneath those noble words is often fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being judged, fear of being seen trying, fear that the market will not care. So he hides behind craft, and then watches louder, less talented men gain more money, attention, and opportunity, not because they are better, because they understand transmission. Machiavelli would not be surprised. Power does not belong only to the most virtuous or most skilled. It belongs to those who understand how men decide. In The Art of War, Machiavelli wrote, "There is nothing as likely to succeed as what the enemy believes you cannot attempt." Do not distort this into manipulation in private life. In context, he is discussing military surprise. But applied carefully, the principle is about strategic positioning. People respond to what they perceive, expect, and fail to expect. A man who cannot present value is strategically predictable. The trap is this: avoiding sales keeps your value trapped inside you. Sales is not begging. Sales is not lying. Sales is not childish self-promotion. Sales is the ability to connect value to desire, pain, urgency, and decision. If you cannot do that, someone else becomes the bridge between your skill and the market, and the man who controls the bridge takes the toll. Stop thinking sales is beneath you. A powerless man waits to be discovered. A strategic man learns how decisions are made. If you have no network, no support, and no one opening doors, sales is not optional. Sales is how proof becomes money. If you cannot sell, your value waits for another man to translate it. If you are the right man for this channel, stop calling silence humility. You already know you have ability, but your problem is that ability without transmission remains trapped. If you keep avoiding sales, hiding from rejection, and pretending your work should speak for itself, you will keep watching men with less skill take the opportunities you thought your talent deserved. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered studies on persuasion, status, money, reputation, discipline, and the hidden mechanics of power, so you can turn invisible value into visible leverage. This is not for men who want applause without pressure. It is for men ready to confront the market without begging it for mercy. The decision is yours. But even after a man learns sales, builds proof, increases income, and leaves weak environments, there is one final trap that can ruin him quietly. Trap 7. Confusing patience with fear. Many men are not patient. They are afraid. They call it timing. They call it preparation. They call it being realistic. They call it waiting for the right moment. But waiting without proof is not patience. It is hesitation wearing a noble mask. The question is simple. How do you know the difference between patience and fear? Look at what your waiting produces. If your waiting produces research, skill, testing, practice, evidence, savings, stronger judgment, and measured action, it may be patience. But if your waiting produces no pitch, no post, no application, no offer, no conversation, no measurement, no rejection, no test, and no proof, then stop lying to yourself. That is not patience. That is fear with better language. This trap is deadly because it feels mature. The man tells himself, "I am not ready. I need more information. I need more confidence. I need more support. I need the right opportunity. Years pass. He gets older, less hungry, more cautious, more attached to comfort, more skilled at explaining why he has not moved. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." This idea captures one of Machiavelli's most important habits. Recognizing danger early. Trouble is easiest to handle before it fully forms. Delay increases the price. Blockbuster did not collapse because entertainment disappeared. It collapsed because the form of distribution changed. Netflix saw the shift earlier and moved towards streaming. Blockbuster had physical dominance, but physical dominance became a liability when customer behavior moved elsewhere. This is the adaptation trap, and ambitious men fall into it personally. They keep operating under old rules. Work hard and someone will notice. Stay loyal and someone will reward you. Save face and people will respect you. Wait long enough and the right door will open. But the battlefield changes. Skills change, markets change, platforms change, technology changes, status signals change, opportunities change. The man who waits too long does not preserve safety. He preserves irrelevance. The mechanism is this. Patience is strategic delay with active preparation. Fear is passive delay with intellectual excuses. Machiavelli's entire worldview rejects passive dependence. In The Prince, he argues that a ruler must adapt to the times. The man who depends entirely on fortune is ruined when fortune changes. The same is true financially. If you are waiting but not building proof, it is fear. If you are studying but not testing, it is fear. If you are planning but not publishing, pitching, selling, applying, building, measuring, or risking rejection, it is fear. The ambitious man must stop worshipping readiness. Readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is evidence. You become ready by entering reality and letting reality correct you. Waiting without proof is not patience. It is fear with better language. Now the 7 traps are exposed. But exposure is not enough. A man can understand every trap and still remain weak if he does not integrate them into one operating system. Machiavelli did not write personal finance advice. He wrote about power. That distinction matters. If we force his work into shallow money advice, we distort him. But if we understand money as one expression of power, his worldview becomes brutally useful. For Machiavelli, survival belongs to the man who sees human nature clearly, not as he wishes it to be, not as moral teachers describe it, not as polite society performs it, but as it behaves under pressure. In The Prince, he wrote, "Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims." This is not a celebration of deception. It is a warning about need. The more desperate a man is, the easier he is to control. That is why poverty is not only a financial condition, it is a strategic vulnerability. A broke man has fewer exits. Fewer exits mean weaker negotiation. Weaker negotiation means dependence. Dependence means other men can set terms. This is why the unsupported man cannot afford comforting illusions. He cannot afford to believe effort alone will save him. He cannot afford to confuse loyalty with strategy. He cannot afford to chase status before substance. He cannot afford to wait for support. He cannot afford to outsource sales. He cannot afford to worship patience while doing nothing. Machiavelli's money realism can be reduced to a cold sequence: reality before comfort, power before security, proof before recognition, adaptation before loyalty to the past, control before approval. This is not an invitation to cruelty. It is an invitation to clarity. Machiavelli never said consequences disappear. He did not tell rulers to be reckless. In fact, he constantly warned rulers to avoid hatred, contempt, disorder, dependency, and strategic blindness. His realism is dangerous when misunderstood, because weak men hear it and think it gives them permission to become ruthless. It does not. It gives them responsibility to stop being naive. The unsupported man does not need to become immoral. He needs to become impossible to control through approval, fear, urgency, or dependence. That begins with the 7 corrections. Do not chase fast money. Build repeatable value. Do not work invisibly. Build proof. Do not invest to avoid earning. Increase income. Do not stay loyal to low-value environments. Move toward power. Do not look rich before becoming useful. Preserve capital. Do not avoid sales. Translate value into money. Do not call fear patience. Produce evidence. Ambition does not save a man from poverty. Strategy does. And strategy begins when a man stops asking the world to believe in him and starts building so much proof that disbelief becomes expensive. You are not poor because no one clapped. You are poor if your ambition has not yet become leverage. No support is not the final verdict. It is the condition of the battlefield. If no one opens doors, build proof. If no one believes you, build evidence. If no one backs you, build income. If no one promotes you, learn sales. If no one gives you status, become useful enough that status follows. The boy in you wants rescue. The man in you builds power. Machiavelli's realism does not comfort you because comfort is not what you need. You need sharper eyes. You need colder standards. You need to see where your money leaks are really power leaks. Because every dollar wasted on appearance is a soldier not sent to the front. Every hour spent explaining is proof not built. Every year spent waiting is territory surrendered. Every fear disguised as patience is a throne left empty. The world does not reward the man who suffered. It rewards the man who turned suffering into structure. If this exposed something you cannot unsee, subscribe. Not for motivation. For continued study in Machiavellian realism, power, money, discipline, reputation, and the psychology of becoming undeniable when no one is coming to help. Because the man who understands power stops leaking it. And the man who stops leaking power becomes dangerous to ignore.